How to use Antigravity Complete Beginner's Guide. Most people use Antigravity exactly like ChatGTP. They open chat, they ask for some code, and then they paste it into their project and hope that it will work. The problem is that Antigravity wasn't really built for that, because unlike ChatGTP, Antigravity can read files, understand project context, create plans, write code, run commands, run tests, fix bugs, and work across your entire code base. So in this video, I'm going to show you the workflow I wish I knew when I first started working with Antigravity. So normally, if you were to ask ChatGTP, you will kind of send something like this, where you will tell it, hey, I have an HTML file and I want to fake it with some code, and it will then go ahead and give you the code. As you can see over here, this is Python, and it gave me the HTML. And then you will go ahead and kind of copy this. And in this case, it will probably look something like this. So you will have new file, and I will go ahead and call this HTML parser.py and create that. And then it will look something like this pretty much. And then you will kind of run the code. That's kind of really how you will kind of go about it. But the difference here, if you were to use Antigravity, it will kind of look like this instead. If I paste the exact same command and I remove all of this code and I write that in here, you will now be able to kind of see that Antigravity will now go ahead and write out all the code for me on the left or in the middle section. And there you go. It created some virtual environment. It created a visual code. I'm just going to accept that. And this is kind of how it looks like, because you're going to have to accept things as they pop up. And it will kind of ask you while you're building, is this what you want, etc., etc. And you're just going to have to accept it. And eventually it's going to be a lot, the entire thing, which is fine. The generator.py. And here is pretty much the code once again. And as you can probably understand, this goes a lot faster because it created it for me inside Antigravity, where I can just run the code right away instead of copy pasting it from ChatGTP. And that's really kind of it. So what do you actually need to make this work? Well, you're going to have to download Antigravity. So if you go to Google and search for Antigravity, you're going to see that. And then you can essentially download for Windows or Mac, it doesn't, or Linux, whichever software you're using, just download it for that one. I personally just use the Antigravity IDE, which is this one. That's the one I'm using right now. But you can, of course, use the SLE, SDK, Antigravity 2.0 if you want to. But we're mainly focusing on the IDE. That's what I'm kind of using over here. And then what we're going to do is eventually when we clicked download for Apple, once we've downloaded and installed it, at that point, it's going to look something like this. And you're going to have to click log in. And it's going to ask you to log in with your Google account. And there is, of course, a free plan or a pro plan and a max plan. So you can run this on the free plan pretty much. But once you've logged into your account, this is pretty much how it's gonna pretty much look like. So if I were to go ahead now and confirm this, that will just lead to me removing all of, it's gonna remove all of that. So this is kind of how it's gonna look for you. You're essentially gonna be inside the folder and you're not really going to have anything. That's really kind of the start of it. And the first thing we got to do in this case is that we kind of have to create some sort of project, and there are different ways to go about it. But normally what I do is that I just click on open, and then I go to my main folder where I essentially just create a new folder like this. So I might call this Antigravity 2, for example, and then I click create, and then I open that. And then we're inside a new project. And then the next thing you should probably do is that you should probably run git init, empty git, perfect. And what this really does is just protecting your work. So every single time you're making an update, you will be able to keep track of the updates. You will be able to kind of roll back if you make some mistakes. So this is essentially like a autosave, but on the cloud for you, which is super helpful in case something happens. That's really kind of it. And that's really kind of why we use it. And if you don't want to run in the terminal, you can just tell Cloud, hey, or Antigravity, hey, can you turn on git init for this directory, so we track everything we do. And of course, I can also use the record audio if I want to down here. But now it's going to go ahead and just run that for me, those commands. It's up to you how you want to go about it, but the entire thing is that, of course, this is going to cost you tokens for doing small things like this, but if you don't know really how to do this, you can just tell Antigravity to kind of do that for you. All right. So now when we have initialized Git, the next step is really the Antigravity MD. And in Antigravity, it's called Gemini MD. So what you kind of have to do is click on additional options, customization, and then you will have these rules. And this is kind of where you will find your Claude.md or agent.md, but this is pretty much a file. Claude will kind of read every single time you kind of tell it to do something. Anti-gravity, of course. I keep saying Claude for some reason. And this file is pretty much all of these rules in terms of like how you should behave, what type of frameworks you should use, the rules essentially that you want to load in. So this is kind of where you're going to write those things inside so that when you run your code and start writing with Antigravity, it's going to know how to kind of run it. So if I go back in here and I start a new conversation over here, and then we can actually start some sort of project right now. So the way I will kind of like go about this is that, let's say we're gonna make I want to create. And now Cloud is Antigravity is gonna go ahead and create some sort of scaffold of this. It's gonna ask me a bunch of questions about like what frameworks I want to use, what language I want to use for the coding language, what front end language I want to use. And you're just going to have to look through that and you select the ones that you feel confident with. I always say that the smartest way to go about this is just to tell Antigravity to always use the same language that you like pretty much. Because that way you will kind of learn that language after a while and kind of understand it. And as you can see over here, we have our implementation plan. And if this looks good to you, you will just go ahead and tell, okay, that's really kind of it. But when it comes to the different languages, it makes sense to just pick one because you can, for example, go with JavaScript or Python in the backend. So it might make sense, or Ruby. And so it will make sense to just pick one language and just run with that. Same thing with the front end, where you have React or you have Tailwhale or something like that, where you can essentially just tell Antigravity to always use the same one. That's kind of the thought process behind it. Same thing with the backend. You select one backend type, so you don't have to try to relearn every single backend because you're just using different ones or letting Antigravity kind of choose that for you, which doesn't really make much sense in this case. And while Antigravity is kind of building this, I like to kind of ask Antigravity, hey, what are we missing? What could go wrong? And like, what should we actually be thinking about? And right now, this is, as you can probably tell, it's kind of going through my own MD files that I've created earlier. That's kind of really what is happening. Nuclear JSON, that's another file I have. And what I've done is that I've just told Gemini to go through those files based on some rules from my rules file, pretty much. And now, as you will also be able to see on the left side, is that we have some Git or some things we can add to Git pretty much and push it to GitHub. And this is kind of how it looks like. It will kind of tell us the changes, where you can essentially see if you want to push this, and then you can essentially select all of this and then stage changes. And then what you need to do is just commit and push. And when you commit and push, you push that to GitHub. That's all you're doing. And then moving forward, once you make a change, it will kind of flag the file so you can essentially see. So if I were to go and stage change, and then you'll have to always add a message up top over here. Let's see. And then we're going to commit and push that. So now if if I make some changes here, you will receive a green line over here. So that's kind of telling you that you've made some new changes to the file, and that's kind of how you keep track of all of the changes. So that's why adding Git is very good, because you can keep track of everything that's happening. And now we're just going to copy this URL, and then we'll be able to see our habit flow. At this point, we have the app. It looks pretty, I will say it looks pretty bad. There are a lot of things we need to fix here. But the entire thing is that what we kind of want to figure out is what are the things that are not working properly? Do we want to change the design, etc., etc.? All of those things you need to kind of go through. Like, do we want to be able to add a new habit? Do we, for example, okay, we have some filters over here. So that's really kind of what we're doing here. We're just testing out everything just to like see how it's working. Maybe we want to be able to kind of go back in time and change things, you know? So this is just like ways to like kind of think about it. But let's say I go, let's say we do this. Can you connect GitHub? Can you connect my Git to a repo on GitHub? And this, I'm doing this because I don't think we are connected to GitHub right now. Hence, why we kind of have to do that. And this is kind of it. So what we have to kind of do is that we have to go to GitHub, and we have to create a repo. So I'm just going to go to GitHub, and I'm just going to call this habit dash tracker. And I'm just going to make this private because it just depends. But in most cases, you probably don't want to have public apps of what you're making. And then I'm just going to link that to Cloud Antigravity. And it's pretty much going to go ahead right now and connect that to our project right now. So then we were able to kind of push all of these things to GitHub. And if we go ahead and we stage these changes, we will now be able to see all of our files. And here are all of our files, as you can see, which is perfect. So, and then I can go, can you change the color of the habit tracker to all green? Make sure that the cards are visible. And that, so now it's gonna go ahead and change the color of the habit flow because I didn't really like this. And I also mentioned like, hey, make sure that the cards are visible when we change it to green. That's kind of important. So let's take a look and see what happens now. Perfect. And now it's all green. And if we go back into anti-gravity, we will also now be able to kind of see the changes that have happened. As you can see over here, here's a change. And we can also track that change across GitHub if you want to. And sometimes when this happens, when it's just lagging, all you really need to do if you want to reset this is that you just need to turn off, you just need to kill anti-gravity and just turn it back on, and then it will work properly as it should do. But I'm not going to do that right now because it's not that important to show that right now. I will say that the biggest issue I ran into when I started with this is that number one, I skipped Git a lot. I didn't really work with it as much as I should, which made it kind of annoying because when you made your changes and you messed up something, there was no way for you to kind of now roll back that future. Like there was no way to know when you made that change because it wasn't saved anywhere. And that's like one of those things where it's just like, if you, as soon as you start using Git, you're probably going to keep on using it because you're going to realize how important it is to actually keep track of everything and not ending up in a place where, oh my God, like what am I going to do now? I lost all my work, you know? And of course, starting without a plan, I will say that is also important. Just write some sort of plan. You can either speak into anti-gravity, but just have some sort of idea of what you're trying to do. Try to plan out as much as possible so that it covers as much ground as possible when you build it out, because that will lead to less fixing down the line versus if you just one-shot it and you try to do that, it might just lead to more work on your end. Another thing is, of course, changing languages. So right now, if I'm using JavaScript, it won't make sense for me to start using Python tomorrow. And when you do that, you're switching so much that you're not really learning the language at all. You're essentially just switching, and that is not really good. It's as if you started learning Spanish and then you jumped over to learn German. That's really pretty much what you're kind of doing when you're switching between the languages. So just pick one that is popular, that a lot of people are using and paying people to do, and just stick to that. That is really my best recommendation on this. And you can, of course, write inside the customization, like the rules, and just tell, hey, I prefer to use Python, as you can see here. Default to Python whenever possible, and use the appropriate language for the task. Of course, it doesn't always make sense to use Python, but in those cases, well, use something else where you make the language that kind of makes sense. But try to default to Python. That's really my log. I will say that is kind of really it. The biggest reason for why people kind of mess up well trying to code with AI is probably they don't use their MD files like agent.md, cloud.md, or Gemini.md to just make sure that the agent kind of loads in the correct information, or they don't really use Git, which is another annoying thing. If you're not doing that, you're going to lose a lot of work. Super annoying. Or they don't really plan out things beforehand. They just throw it out there and hope that it will kind of work itself out, which just leads to it taking way more time than you initially thought. Found this video helpful? Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.